So welcome. These Creatrix conversations are free live streams that I do once a month here. They are part talk, part interactive workshop, and part activation, right? Like a transmission of wisdom teachings and around topics to get you inspired and get you activated and motivated. And today's topic is something that's near and dear to me because it's all about cyclic living and leading our lives in tune, attuned, in rhythm with nature's cycles. So I'm glad that people are here. Yes, I know your tech was messing up. Yeah, well, Mercury retrograde. Hello, Aurora. Wonderful to have you here. So this seems to be working. Before we dive in case you don't know me well yet, my name is Flora, and I am the hostess of this sacred online space that is Awaken the Goddess Within. And I am a priestess, a writer, a speaker, and a leadership mentor and sacred business coach. And really what I do is that I help women remember their wisdom and step into their unique feminine power. So it is truly my privilege and my pleasure to share this space with all of you and to be here today talking about attuning to solar and lunar cycles. And I promised you a free gift, and I'm going to be dropping the link so you can get that gift after, but I have created a new Cyclic living guide. I'm sure we can see that. Yeah. And this is, I'm really excited to share this. This is a free gift for you. It's not just the chart. Isn't it gorgeous? It's gorgeous. But there's a whole guide with it. So it's an 8-page guide, and I created one for the Northern Hemisphere, and I created one for the Southern Hemisphere. So I didn't want to leave anyone out. And so this is part of what I'm talking about today, is connecting the 8 phases of the solar wheel of the year with the 8 lunar phases. And so I'm really excited to share that. And this is this gift you receive when you register for my Elevate training, which is my other exciting announcement. Woo! That next month starting on the full moon, Monday, March 9th until March 12th, I'm hosting a sacred skills training. And this is a leadership training. Each day we're going to focus on one sacred skill. And this is to align your leadership with your mission, your message, and your magic. And the first sacred skill that we are focusing on day 1 is attune. And that's all about leading your life in attunement with rhythms like this, with the solar wheel of the year, with the lunar cycles, of course, with your own cycle too, if you still menstruate, if you still bleed. There's so many layers to this topic of cyclic living. On day 2, the sacred skill is focus. On day 3, the sacred skill is transmit. And on day 4, the sacred skill is manifest. And that is an optional online workshop that is paid if you want to join us for a 2-hour workshop and group coaching session. If you just want the first 3 days of free training, you are still going to get a lot out of that. So I will make sure that I drop the link for Elevate. I hope that you will join us. I'm really excited to share this sacred skills leadership training, and you get the Cyclic Living Guide as a free gift right away for signing up for that. So why is this important? Well, I'm sure that oh, good. I need to remember to scroll down and see. Hello, Lindley. Wonderful. Hello, Grace and Alina and everyone else has joined us. So I explained earlier that I'm not used to doing live streams from my desktop computer, but Mercury retrograde was having some fun with me. So actually, I would like to hear from you. Why do you think it's important for us to not only have an awareness of natural cycles, but to live them as an embodied practice? So please share in the comments, right? My opinion is not is not the only important one here. I want to hear from you. Why do you think it's important? Because I'm going to share why I think it's important. Up until very, very recently, we did not have artificial light. We had fire, and we'd figured out like oil lamps. But think about it. In 1920, 100 years ago, electricity in homes and buildings was not a given. It was still a new thing. So when you think about our history as a species on this planet, artificial light is a very new invention. So we have a much more ancient relationship with our light sources and our life sources of the sun and the moon. Sometimes I just love to fantasize about what life would have been like, right? When it got dark out, it got pretty dark out. We had candles, or we had torches, or we had a fire, but that was it. So in a relatively a very short period of time in our human history, we've been exposed to artificial light, and we've become, what I think, dangerously out of sync with our circadian rhythms, and with that natural sympathetic relationship that we as a species have had with moonlight and with the sun. Sarah shares, it helps me get out of the linear way of living. Exactly. And that's something else, that the linear way of living and thinking is another artificial construct of humans, and it's not natural. Sister Michelle shares that it puts us more in sync with the planet and our world. When Gaia rests, we rest. Beautiful. That's exactly it. That we can either be in rhythm and in sync with these cycles, or not. And the vast majority of us are no longer in sync. So it's really important for us to remember that the earliest written calendars, when we were just starting to write things down, again, as a species, just have a little bit of a history lesson here, but the earliest written calendars were lunar. And it was the Sumerians who lived in what's known as Mesopotamia, that were the first to create the lunar calendars about 5,000 years ago. And that they knew from really paying attention to the lunar cycles that the cycle had about 28, 29 days. But for them in their climate, they really only had 2 seasons. They had like the rainy season, they had the dry season. And that's the other thing that's important to remember, that we want to be in touch with the climate, the land on which we live, right? It's going to be very different. I know some of you are tuning in from like the southern US, Florida and California. You live in a very different climate than I am here in BC, Canada, where we have 4 distinct seasons. And the Celtic calendar, the Celtic wheel of the year, is much more similar to where I live, a little less snow, but those 4 seasons. Whereas, these early calendars of the early people 5,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, or the Egyptians, along the Nile in Africa, they were in tune to their climate, to nature's cycles and rhythms where they lived. The first calendars were lunar. And then over time, you know, as we became more agrarian as a society, which means developing our agriculture, we became more, our calendars became more connected to the solar cycles, right? Because the sun brings the seasons, and what different seasons around that. And so this, as the representation of the wheel of the year, there you go, the wheel of the year, you know, and connect to the different 8 phases. Each one is going to have a different energy and a different quality. And depending on where you live, it's going to feel different still, right? Like I keep on saying. Oh, beautiful. I'm seeing a few more comments come up. Connects you to universal energies. Beautiful. It's our natural state and being. It gives you an understanding of why you might be feeling a particular way and how best to work with that. That's beautiful. Yeah, understanding why we're feeling a little bit in different, because of different energy cycles. And yeah, good point, Michelle. Not all of California is sunny, but you know, but I know that you're in Northern California, and it's still you know, your winter is just very different than our winter, like I was saying. So it's important for us all, and even as you are using this chart and this guide, I want you to really tune in to the seasons, and to the energy of the land upon which you live. We're in a really interesting point in history. I was just having this discussion in another group where, you know, if you're not First Nations or a First Nations descendant, and you live in North America, then you are an immigrant. You are a transplant. You are a descendant from immigrants who came here from Europe or from Asia or from Africa, where your ancestors came willingly or not, right? That we are in an interesting point in history where so many of us don't have a rooted connection or sense of belonging to place. And so a lot of us are searching for that sense of belonging to where we live, and moving across country for school or jobs or relationships is much more commonplace now than it ever was, right? When we think of our ancestors that were born and lived and worked the land and died all in the same place, and we can think now, oh, how limiting, and what a you know, what a small life. And you know, there's some validity to that as well. There's some truth there, but there's also the truth that how connected they would have felt to the land and to their sense of belonging to place and the roots that they have there. And so now there's so many of us, and I think a lot of our spiritual seeking in this day and age is for us trying to find our roots. We're trying to feel connected to where we live. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't go around, that you should live where you were born. No, that's not what I'm saying. We can develop and nourish our roots and our sense of rootedness to place and to the land on which we live by cyclic living, through cyclic living as an embodied practice of attunement. That's really what we're talking about today, is attunement, right? See if I'm missing any more comments. No. Okay. So also, if you have any questions about cyclic living or the wheel of the year or lunar cycles, put them in the comments, and I will try to answer them. If I don't during this live, I will get to it. But so let's start with the 8 phases, right? I'll do an overview of the 8 phases. So this is probably a nice little guide for me to show you. Oh, so many reflections here. No, okay, that's not going to work. Let's just start with the new moon. We have a new moon coming up this Sunday, Monday. So February 23rd, February 24th is the new moon. beginning of the lunation, the beginning of a new lunar cycle. We can't see the new moon. It's the dark moon. It's in the earth is right in between the sun and the moon at that time. So there's no sunlight reflecting on the moon. The new moon is also known as the dark moon. It is that fertile void, right? It's the blackness. It is the seeding phase when we plant seeds, and with the holy day it's connected to on the wheel of the year is Yule, or winter solstice, the short day and the long dark night. And so that's associated with the new moon or the dark moon. I'm not going to go into all of the aspects or how to work with this because that's all in the guide. I'm just going to give an overview. But then we have a waxing crescent. And that's when we first start to see the sliver, the new sliver of the moon. And depending on if you're in the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere, the crescent faces a different way. and that I had to do two totally different parts, not only because the seasons are different, but the moon faces a different way, which is really fascinating. And I love that. But in that waxing crescent, the waxing increasing energy, you can sense that there's that feeling of filling up, something getting bigger, increasing light, increasing energy. And this connects to the holy day. Yes, that's right. The holy day of Imbolc, which is February 1st in the northern hemisphere, and it's August 1st in the south. We just celebrated Imbolc, right? Many of you attended the Seeds of Spring online ceremony of Imbolc. If you didn't catch the Imbolc online ritual ceremony, by all means, you can still go back and watch the replay. It's here in the group. What I love about the Wheel of the Year is that we can celebrate these holy days, these high holy days, these fire festivals, or these astronomical events, whatever it is, on the day. But really, it's really about a season. It's really about a stage. So we are in the phase of Imbolc, from between Imbolc and Ostara, which is spring equinox. It's that whole phase. So everything that connects, it's like the holy day, the point initiates it, but then it carries through. So if you want to go and watch that Imbolc ceremony, by all means, right? It's still relevant. We're still in it. And next month on the 19th, I believe, spring equinox is coming a little early this year. That's our next online ritual ceremony here in this Awaken the Goddess Within community as we celebrate the beginning of spring. So the spring equinox connects to the lunar phase of the first quarter moon, which is the waxing half moon. So when you see that moon, that's just the half, like half of the pie. And if it's in the waxing, that's what that phase is about. And that's an interesting one because it's kind of like a right angle. So there's like a bit of tension in that phase, or that halfway point. And that the word that I feel really encapsulates the energy that we need to move forward with this phase is nurture. We need to continue to nurture our plans and our gardens at the beginning of the spring equinox, because that's what this guide is really about. The words in the inner ring, I'm not sure if they're backwards for you or not on this camera, but this is a creation cycle. This is about living this as an embodied practice, but and also about manifesting, right? Manifesting things, creating things, working with the flow of the cycles. And we've got the smaller lunar phases that we go through every month, and then the larger wheel, the larger cycle, solar cycle of the year, right? And I've talked about this before, but it's just how my mind works, and I love it, that it's like little wheels in a clock and the bigger wheels in a clock when we think about this. Oh, Laura, thank you for joining. Wonderful. So yes, I don't see any questions yet, but if you have any questions or comments come up, write them down. So moving on, the next lunar phase is the waxing gibbous, right? So the whole first half of the lunar phase is considered waxing, right? That's an increasing. So after the first quarter moon, or what's also called the waxing half moon, you have the waxing gibbous. Now, the word gibbous refers to the shape, and it actually means bulging, which always makes me giggle. I don't know. I'm still immature in some ways, just like bulging. I don't know. There's something funny that the moon isn't quite full, but it's like it's bulging out, and that's the waxing gibbous. And to let you know, because again, especially if this is new to you, the waxing gibbous to the full moon is often the moon that we most see, because it's seeing some laughing faces. Is because it's the moon rises in the evening, right? So if you aren't really consciously, intentionally trying to find the moon at different phases throughout the month, but you see it in the early evening and it's not full, right? It's just that's the waxing gibbous. We will most often see the waxing gibbous phase, and the full moon will just, whoa, there's the full moon. And then you might notice that it's like you don't see the moon anymore for the rest of the cycle, and I'll share more about that. The waxing gibbous phase, the key word here is amplify, and it connects to on the solar cycle, the holy day of Beltane. And Beltane happens April 30th, May 1st in the northern hemisphere, and October 31st, November 1st in the southern hemisphere. So Beltane is just such a wonderful time of year, and it's like it is again, bulging, bursting. It really has that energy, and so that's that connection there. Glad that I can entertain as well as inform and inspire. So moving on, like I said, after the waxing gibbous, you have the full moon, and if you have clear skies and you are out in the evening, you can't miss a full moon, right? You can't miss it, and that's the peak, right? It's the moon is literally being fully revealed because of the angles of how the earth moves around the sun and how the moon moves around the earth, that it's fully exposed and fully revealed. And it's just such a peak. It's the peak. And this, of course, connects to the summer solstice, where the sun is at its peak, right? So you can see now on the sides here, wait, I should do it up and down, like the new moon, winter solstice, and the full moon, summer solstice. So you start to see this, these parallels, these correspondences. So the key word in this lunar phase, or in that on that point of the wheel, that I really felt captures the essence, is celebrate. Like, celebrating. It's the peak. I almost wanted to work with gratitude, but it's really, I speak more about how to work with gratitude in this phase in the guide. But this is the phase where we celebrate. And then after that, of course, the moon begins to wane, and it's an eternal cycle, ebb and flow, up and down, right? In and out, wax and wane. And so the waxing, we basically go in reverse. So after the full moon, you have the waxing gibbous, right? So you have a little bit less. And this is the lunar phase that we most often don't get to see, unless you're a night owl, because the waning gibbous rises closer to midnight, and then it sets soon after sunrise. So if you've ever felt like after the full moon, you kind of don't see the moon again for a while, this is why. Because throughout the cycle, the moon rises 40 minutes later each day, starting from the new moon into like throughout the whole cycle. So the new moon rises at sunrise and sets at sunset. So it's a day moon. We don't see it anyway. The light is it's obscured, it's blocked. And then it starts to rise 40 minutes later. And that's why the waxing moon is more of a nighttime moon and we can see it. But then that waning gibbous, I hope I'm not getting too technical. I love all this stuff and it's fascinating to me, right? The waning gibbous is really late. So you have to be up just later to see it. And it connects on the solar cycle to the holy day of Lunasa. And that's August 1st in the north, or February 1st in the southern hemisphere. So if you're in the southern hemisphere, you're in the stage of Lunasa right now. And it's the beginning of the harvest. And, it's a beautiful time, a solar wheel, and it's again a beautiful time in the lunar cycle. But because of that decreasing light and that sense of anything like decreasing, the key word that I wanted to bring forward for this phase is trust. Because whenever we can feel something lessening, decreasing, right, we can sometimes we get a little uneasy, right? We can bring up fears. It can bring up feelings of scarcity, right? That something's running out, right? We just had this peak energy and then now, oh no, it's dwindling. So in terms of this creation cycle, it's like, no, trust. The harvest is only just beginning. Okay, that's fine, sister. All right, moving on to the 7th phase now. The 7th phase, after the waning gibbous, you have the waning half moon, or what's more commonly called the last quarter. You have the first quarter and the last quarter of the half moons. So, pardon me. This connects to the autumn equinox. And the last quarter moon, again, rises in the middle of the night and then sets at noon. So if you get up in the morning like me and you look to where you see the moon, for me it's looking south, right? If you're in the southern hemisphere, you'd be looking north. That it's a morning moon. Right, it's a morning moon. Once we get past the last quarter into the waning crescent, you will see the moon in the morning if you look for it. And the last few days here, I've been doing my morning meditation and stretching, gazing at the waning moon in the morning sky as the sun rises, and it's a beautiful thing that I do in this lunar phase. Because I always miss the waning gibbous. I'm just not up in the middle of the night, but I will often start to catch this. So in the last quarter moon, like I said, it connects with autumn equinox. So the key word for this at this point in the creation cycle really is harvest. What are you harvesting? Are you harvesting lessons? Are you harvesting actually material gain at this point? How are your manifestation efforts coming along? And also, what are you choosing to preserve for future harvests? So that's all the energy around that. And then the 8th and final phase before it all starts again is the waning crescent, which I just mentioned. And that's the phase that we're in right now today. And again, if you look in the morning, you'll just see the sliver. We're at the sliver of the waning crescent. And this connects on the solar wheel to Samhain, or Halloween. So October 31st in the north, or May 1st if you're in the south. And so it's that final phase, and the key word here is release. We're releasing and we're letting go, and we're throwing out what we no longer need into the compost pile. Because really this whole chart is connected to the life cycle of like the organic life cycle, where we have seed, seed, germination, sprout, seedling, a mature plant, fruiting, and then the harvest, and then decay. We often forget about that phase of decay. We like to say, you know, life, death, rebirth. No, there's there's phase between death and rebirth. A plant dies, decays, then has to be germinated again, grown before it's reborn. And that's the same with our manifestation efforts. It's the same with our life cycle. And I explain a lot more about this in the guide. So, I'm not sure what that means, Alina, but does that mean that I'm cutting out because of the broadcast? Yeah, that's unfortunate. But so maybe I'll wrap it up. I don't want this to be too long, but like I said, I want to share the link for you to get your own copy of the Cyclic Living Guide, and because there's more information and, you know, suggestions in there and how to work, and it really is attunement. Like I love that word, being attuned like an instrument, working with these cycles as an embodied practice. You know, that it's just part of how you live your life. And if you are in business, if you are a spiritual entrepreneur, it becomes an embodied practice of how you lead your business. And that is a perfect segue to once again announce that March 9th to 12th is my new leadership training called Elevate. And in order to get your copy of this right now, you do need to register for Elevate. And this is sacred skills training for spiritual leaders, for teachers, for healers, for creatives, for anyone who is guiding others in a transformation of any kind. So I'm really excited to bring us together to focus on these sacred skills. Day 1, attune. Day 2, focus. Day 3, transmit. And day 4, if you choose to join for the optional paid workshop, the sacred skill for day 4 is manifest. These are essential skills for anyone who's in leadership, and certainly anyone who is approaching their business as a devotional act of service, that you are approach your work, that you know that this is your sacred work, and that you're answering the call of leadership in a bigger way. So check out Elevate, get your copy of the Cyclic Living Guide. And I would just, love, as always with these Creatrix conversations, I'm opening the conversation about what it's like to live in tune with these cycles, and how you practice it. And for me, it's often rituals, solo and group rituals. I just shared with you even my practice of moon gazing in the morning when it's the waning crescent, and going outside under the moonlight, taking moon walks, and honoring both the lunar cycles and the solar cycles of the year. So I always know where I'm at, where I fit in, what steps I'm doing in this ancient spiral dance. So thank you again, all of you, for joining in. Oh, yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, all of you. This is lapis lazuli. And so, yeah, I was feeling the blue today. So thank you. That's really sweet. Good. I will tell you, there's lots more in the guide. I can't wait to see you in Elevate. And I will, of course, be responding to your comments, because this is, like I said, this is a conversation for all of us to benefit from, about how to practice cyclic living as conscious, caring women in the 21st century. How do we reconnect to these cycles and repair these ancient relationships that we as a species have had since the beginning of time with nature? That's what really lights me up. So thank you, much love, and I'll talk to you again soon. Mwah. Bye for now.